Means analysis. Means analysis. I think it's kind of funny because when I think about means analysis, the first thing often that comes to mind is analyzing how mean someone is to you, you know? But that's not really what we're talking about. When we talk about means analysis, it's the idea that it's important to figure out where you are and what you have before you start to move forward. So when you look at the whole idea of a digital strategy, when you look at the entire idea of a digital strategy, it's this concept of where am I today? What am I doing today? And so first thing you have to do is you have to figure out what are you doing and how is it working? Right? Now, if you have something that you think is a good idea, but it's really costing you money, then you have to either figure out how to improve it or cut it loose. If you have something that's working in one way but not another, how do you improve it or cut it loose? I recently fired a client, and it was a very frustrating situation for me because it was a client from our marketing firm, and we were doing pay-per-click advertising. And so it was this whole idea of the idea of pay-per-click advertising is effectively you're paying to get clicks for people to take some action. So they're going to click on a link and it's going to pull up another landing page, or they're going to click on it, it's going to go to your website, they're going to click on it and it's going to do something, right? So that's the whole point. Now, if I'm paying for that advertising for a person to click on something and people are clicking on something, is that advertising working?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. How so?
Yes, because you're getting traffic. Possibly no, if it's not conversion.
Okay, but if I'm paying to get the clicks and I'm getting the clicks, it's getting the clicks.
It's effective, yes.
Okay, but you're not paying for conversions in essence, right? With that thought process, you're paying for clicks. Because if I've got an ad on Facebook that is intending for people to click it and get to my website, and people are clicking it and they're going to my website, but they're not converting into sales, is it a problem with the ad or is it a problem with my website?
No, the ad's effective.
The ad's effective because it's getting the clicks. It's the conversion that happens after the click that's the problem, right? So this is why I had to fire this particular client. Because of the fact that, one, he couldn't get it. He kept saying, I'm not getting enough new customers. I'm not getting enough new customers. Dude, I can tell you what the problem is. And in fact, I tried on several occasions to tell him what the actual problem is, but he didn't want to accept it. Well, my closing ratio is 85%. No. Your closing ratio is 85% if you're talking to someone who has called you up on the phone that they're already interested in what it is that you have to offer. They have the capacity to be able to pay what you're looking for. So you have a highly qualified hot lead. You're closing 85%. So in reality, your closing ratio is not 85%. Your closing ratio is probably 7.
He's not getting them to the chair.
Right.
Not so much more traffic.
Right. And so you got to be able to get them to share. So this is what means analysis is all about. It's what do you have that's working? What do you have that's not working? What do you have that needs to be working better? Maybe it's doing okay already. It just needs to be better. What do you have that's not working at all? That's just absolute waste of your money and time. Right? Think about the word means. The word means, right? The word means. What comes to mind when you think about the word means? Provision. Okay. Capacity.
Yeah.
Ability. Right? So when we think about this kind of stuff, this is what are we utilizing to help us reach our goals? And then we have to begin to analyze it to help determine if it's going to reach our goals. Now, previously we talked about goals in marketing, that we have two major goals. We have branding and we have business. And each of these have sub-goals of awareness, relationship, and community. In business, we have new business, we have repeat business, and we have cross-sells. Right? So now that we know these are really where our goals lie, and based on our previous discussion, what we had to do is we had to begin to break this down, right? What are the needs of my business? What are the needs of my business, and how do these things compare to that, right? The next step is in this means analysis. So when we're looking at digital strategy, what we have to look at are the 5 pillars, right? There's 5 pillars. And these 5 pillars are the 5 major strategies that are utilized in marketing in a digital world. The first we'll call SMM. It stands for social media marketing. Social media marketing. So the question is what social media resources are you taking advantage of right now? And what are you utilizing within each of these social media resources? Right? So what are you doing on social media? Are you using a specific posting software? Are you utilizing the correct social medias? What are you doing? Right? And so these are very important details, so you have to get very specific. So the first question that I ask myself with this is, what social media outlets am I using? Am I using Facebook? Am I using Twitter? Am I using LinkedIn? Am I using Instagram? Am I using WhatsApp? You know, there are lots of social media outlets out there, and all of them have their specific targets, right? So the question is what social media outlets am I using? The next question is this social media outlet the most appropriate for my target market? The next question then becomes, what tools within this am I utilizing? What tools am I utilizing? Number 2 is called display. Display. Display is display advertising. This is digital advertising. Now, there is a difference between advertising and marketing, right? So when we talk about display, we're talking specifically advertising. Everywhere you look, whether it be online or offline, you see some form of advertising. Everywhere you look. People wear t-shirts that advertise brands, right? You go online, you see ads everywhere. You get emails that are full of ads. These days we get text messages that are full of ads. But ultimately, when we're doing our means analysis, what I have to do is I look at what am I doing with display. In other words, what strategies am I taking advantage of in digital advertising? Now, social media marketing is more about the posting and interaction on social media. Display advertising is more about the actual ads that you place. So display advertising could be paid ads on social media. It could be paid ads on other people's websites. It could be paying for ads through Google or Bing. Right? And by the way, some of this stuff will, it all crosses over because it's all interactive, right? So display advertising can impact social media, right? Because if you're doing display advertising on social media, right? The third is search. Search. We talk about search, what we're talking about is search engines. And there are 2 different types of search engine marketing, SEO and SEM. Okay? SEO and SEM. SEO stands for search engine optimization, right? So search engine optimization, think of it as your earned search, right? It's your earned search. You have optimized your collateral in such a way that you have earned your placement somewhere within that particular search engine. We hear a lot about SEO these days. People talk about ranking number 1 on Google, right? The first page of Google gets the vast majority of the clicks. We hear these kind of things. It makes it an important aspect of our digital strategy, but it's not the only aspect of our digital strategy, the way that a lot of marketing companies advertise it, right? It's our earned search. So think of it like a slow, drizzly rainfall. Okay? It will get things wet over time, but it's not immediate. You can't control it, right? A lot of people think you can control it. You cannot control it. Search engines change algorithms. When they change algorithms, it means that it's a constant process. They change algorithms. What used to work doesn't work anymore. This happens frequently, multiple times per year, in fact. Okay? And so there's that constant process of I've got to keep doing something to continue to earn my place in search rankings. That's SEO. SEM is search engine marketing. Okay? That's more of the display type. So search engine marketing would be things like getting display ads or search engine ads. That is a paid search. So SEO is earned search. Search engine marketing is more of your paid or bought search. So then the question becomes is which search engines are you working with? Are you working with any search engines? Are you doing anything specifically in your strategy that's going to get you ranked so when people go to search for things, they're going to find it? The easiest way to think of search engines these days is like the old school phone book, right? Because nobody's going to pick up the yellow pages anymore and finger through it and flip over to HVAC or whatever it may be and say, okay, who do I need to call, right? They're going to go to Google. They're going to type HVAC companies near me. They're going to type my air conditioner is broken, right? They're going to type new heat pump. They're going to type all kinds of stuff in this. So the question is are you there when they're typing this stuff in, right? And then how are you there, right? Whether it's SEO or SEM. That's search engine marketing. Number four is site. Site. That's your website. Websites are good for things like creating a relationship with customers. In fact, these days, if you don't have a website, a lot of people will turn away. They question themselves, are you a fly-by-night company? How can we really take these people seriously if we can't find out anything about them? And I still see it all the time. You go to Google, you'll search for something, you find a particular company, the company is actually listed in Google because it's like a Yellow Pages listing, but then you look for that little button that says visit website and it's not there, right? Because they don't have a website. Oh dang, well how am I supposed to check them out? How am I supposed to find out anything about them? And a lot of people will visit that website before they would ever pick up the phone and make a phone call because they want to see what services do you actually offer. Because not everybody does everything. It's kind of like if going back to my HVAC example, the name of a company is At Home HVAC, but they only do commercial work. You know, okay, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But in a lot of people's minds, if I can't see what you do or what you offer, then why would I choose you? Because I can go to any of these other places and see what they do and offer, right? It just makes more sense. And so again, it's good for that building relationship with customers. It's good for the people that do come across you to find what it is that they do, right? And so then the question becomes do you have a website? Okay. If I have a website, then does it accurately and adequately explain what it is that I do? And I'll go ahead and give you one of the number one problems that I see with most websites these days is many websites tend to speak in jargon and terminologies that their market may or may not be able to effectively understand. One of my rules of thumb has always been that if I'm going to copyright for something, I'm going to write the copy in such a way that a 7th grade child can understand it, right? Because then I know, regardless of a person's level of education, they have the capacity to be able to understand it. And that's actually, today, that's a part of your SEO. Readability analysis is what that's called. So if your readability score isn't good, in other words, if it's not easy to understand, it actually harms your search engine rankings. So your website's got to perform. The final pillar is CRM. Okay? CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. Okay? When we talk about CRM, though, what we're looking at is we're looking at this idea of not just customer relationship management, it's total relationship management, right? The idea with this is I need to be able to manage the relationship of both my customers and my prospects. Okay? So when we talk about CRM, what we're really looking at is what tools can I do or get that help automate things for my business so that I don't have to do everything manually, right? One of the biggest aspects of CRM that we utilize is email marketing, right? A good CRM system will have email marketing built into it. In fact, one of the unfortunate things that a lot of companies will look at is they'll look at a company like a MailChimp, which is an email marketing company, right? But doesn't offer any other CRM functionalities, right? And so since it doesn't offer any other CRM functionalities, it's just basically a mailing software. While it's not that I dislike MailChimp, I'm just a bigger fan of companies that can do more than one thing, right? ActiveCampaign is a good example of this, right? Because within ActiveCampaign, I can email and create email automations and do all that kind of stuff in it, but I can also manage customers within the system. I can tag them with certain things. I can know what they bought. I can create deals within this and be able to track sales through a pipeline, right? So there's a lot more that I can manage within the system besides the idea of being able to shoot somebody out an email. But CRM is highly important because a good CRM system will have the ability to manage email marketing, right? And have the ability to manage some automations and those kind of things too. So when we're doing a digital audit, what we have to look at is we have to look at what do we have, what tools do we have in each of these categories? What are we using in each of these categories? And how good is it? Now, if you don't have any of these tools, you need to get them. Okay? There's lots of ways to be able to handle this stuff. Right? And so when we begin to do that digital audit and look at our tools, then what we need to do is we need to begin to do an analysis of our systematic structures. Right? How's your website doing, for example? Right? Because a lot of this stuff actually pushes back to your site. Right? So oftentimes when we do marketing plans, we will use the site as the hub and then focus on all of this stuff pushing back to the site. Now, the reason why we tend to make the site the hub is because of control. I can control what goes on my website. I cannot control Facebook. I cannot control Google. I cannot control Twitter or LinkedIn. But I can control my website. So since I can control my website, if I utilize these other strategies to push back to my website, then again, now I have that hub, I have spokes on my hub, and my wheel can turn. Right? If all I have is a website, it's kind of like having a wheel without a car. Right? Need to have a little bit more to it than that. And so when we're looking at this hub, what we do is we do what I call a BAC analysis. BAC analysis. BAC stands for bounce rate, activity, and conversions. Bounce rate, activity, and conversions. Bounce rate is the number of people or percentage of people that visit your website and only visit one page. Okay, that's considered a bounce rate. Activity is how many new website sessions has your site had, right?
What constitutes a session?
A session is anytime someone visits your website and spends some time on it. So you think about visitors.
Can you say the activity?
Activity is how many new sessions that your website has had in the period that you're looking at, right? So it's how many new sessions. So a session, if you go to my website this month, that's a session. If you come back next month, if I'm looking at a different period, right, periods being a month, that's a new session, right? If you go to my website this month and come back again tomorrow, that's not a new session, that's a returning session, right? So it's within your given time period that you're looking at. How many new sessions? So that is really the best indicator of how many different people have actually visited your website. Conversion is the number of people that went to your website and took whatever action you intended. So a lot of times when we think about conversions, the first thing we think about is purchases. But conversion does not, and purchases is not directly related, unless the purpose of the conversion solely is purchase. Conversion could be, I get them to my website so they sign up for my email newsletter. That's a conversion. I get them to my website so they can sign up for this free giveaway, right? That's a conversion. I get them to my website, they make a purchase. That's a conversion. So whatever the intended action of the page that they visited is, that would be what shows a conversion. And we know website, different pages, like a contact us page. What's the purpose of a contact us page? Harvest information, right? So it's the purpose of a contact us page is for someone to actually fill out the form, right? So if I'm looking at conversion ratio on that, it's how many people visited that specific page and how many actually filled out the form. So if I had 500 people visit it, but only 200 people filled out the form, then I know I have a 2 in 5 conversion ratio, right, or 40%. Okay, on that. Now, some things, low conversion is going to be fine. It's okay. It may show an issue. If you have very low conversion, then there are lots of things that we have to look at. Things like, is my traffic actually targeted well enough, right? If I see a website that's got 50,000 visits a month, right, but they're converting a fraction of 1%, my first question usually is where are these 50,000 coming from, and are these the right people, right? Is this your target market, or is it just anybody, right? And there are lots of people out there that will drive ads and drive traffic to websites, but it won't be highly targeted, right? I would much rather have many fewer visitors with a much higher conversion rate than many more visitors with a much lower conversion rate, right? So these are the things we have to look at. What's our bounce rate? This is why we use tools like Google Analytics, website analytics, right? How many new activity sessions have we had in the last 30 days, right? This gives us a good indicator of how many people are actually visiting the site. It also tells us, do we need to do more stuff to push people to the site? One of the common issues that we see for people is it's almost like this thought process of, if you build it, they will come, right? Field of dreams really don't work, okay? I like Kevin Costner and all, but at the end of the day, it's not reality. Just because you build a website and it gets on the internet doesn't mean anyone will ever find it, okay? There are literally billions of them, okay? It's like trying to pick out a specific star in the whole universe, right? And so the likelihood of it is slim. So you have to do something to drive people there. And again, there's lots of things that you can do to drive people there, and we'll get into that relatively soon. But it's that activity level that we have to track. And then again, what are the conversions? So if I had 300 people visit my website last month, and I think to myself, wow, that's crappy, that's really low. But I converted 70% of those. I'm not so unhappy at that particular point. You know what I'm saying? I'm feeling pretty good about it. It means that I'm driving highly targeted traffic and it's converting well. It's doing its job. Make sense? So that's on-site. Now off-site is the other area that we have to look at, right? So you got BAC analysis for on-site. Off-site is where we have to look at things like our owned media, what the SEO stuff, the email marketing that we do, and our bought media, the display ads and the SEM ads and Facebook ads and so on and so forth. So we have to begin to look. So on-site, off-site. We have to look at things like click rates. Click rates. Click rates tell us things like of the impressions of the people that actually see that ad, what percentage are clicking on it, or how many are clicking on it, right? We look at conversion rates. Not every ad that you place should be intended to get someone to click to your website. So there's another flaw in that thinking. Because again, remember, branding awareness, some ads that you place are just to get your name out there, to get your target market more familiar with who you are, to get them comfortable with you. People need awareness and relationship, remember, before they're going to buy from you. It goes back to that old saying, know you like you, trust you. Right? So some ads that are placed, realistically are placed for the sole purpose of that branding goals, not business goals. Right? And if you're not doing that, you're doing it wrong. Okay? And then finally is quality traffic. Quality traffic is someone that viewed more than one page. Right? When you're looking at off-site type stuff, what we want to look at is an ROI, right? ROI, return on investment. Again, return on investment should be directly related to your goals, all right? So if it's business goals, then your ROI should be calculated based on revenue generated, right? But if you have branding goals, it doesn't necessarily mean that a ROI is going to be calculated based on revenue generated, okay? It may be calculated based on impressions generated, views, right? This is where we can do things like retargeting. In Facebook advertising, for example, one of the metrics that they actually track is how many times a person sees the same ad, right? It's kind of interesting, and a lot of people don't think it's useful, but one of the things that we know, just from psychology in general, is that a person has to see your brand at least 7 times, a minimum 7 times, and it's 7 to 12 on average times before they will generally take action, right? So what do I want? If I'm doing an awareness campaign, then realistically what I want to do is I want to get it in front of someone to get them to interact with a particular ad, and then I want to retarget them over and over with just awareness. Hey, this is who we are. This is what we do. Hey, this is who we are. This is what we do. Hey, this is who we are. This is what we do. Before I ever ask them to buy anything. In essence, I want to give value before I ask for value. Right? That's really what awareness becomes about. And so we have to be able to measure these things. Right? And so when we're measuring these things, what we look at, there's a little chart that I like to use, especially for offsite related stuff. It's kind of a simple little chart. I gave you a chart last time, so I'll give you a chart this time too. All right. So what we want to look at is display, SEM, and FB Facebook ads. Okay? And by display, in this particular category, what I'm talking about is like display networks. There are display networks that you can advertise in that will, there are lots of websites out there that have ads running on them, but it's part of an ad network. And so you might place an ad through such and such company, and then that ad will be shown on 100,000 different websites, for example. Right? That's a display network. Okay? So I don't really have enough room to write it on here, but I'm going to write it out beside it so you guys can see. This column right here. One of the things we want to track is cost per dwell. Cost per dwell. Cost per dwell is, it's more of a mouse over type idea, right? So in other words, a person sees an ad and they kind of hover over that ad stays in front of them, right? They actually run their mouse over it. That kind of stuff can be tracked, right? Oddly enough. So that's number one. Number two is cost per quality click. Cost per quality click. That excludes bounces. So for example, if I have 200 people click on my particular ad and go to my website, and 100 of those people bounce, meaning they're there for a couple of seconds, they don't visit any other pages, they don't really take any action on the site, they just see it and leave, right? That's a bounce. Then I would have a 100 cost per quality click. So 200 minus the 100 bounces, that gives me my quality actual traffic. 3, cost per action. Cost per action. So the question is what action do I want these people to take? Right? How much does it cost me to get these people to take an action? Right? So I can really bring it down. So for example, if I want somebody to click on a particular landing page and give me their email address, if it costs me $1 to get all these people to the page and I'm converting 30%, right? Then I can calculate out a cost per action. So for example, using my example, if I get 100 people go to this particular page, right? And it costs me $1 per, that costs me $100 for these people to go to this particular page, but I convert 30%. So I converted 30 out of that 100, right? So in effect, what that means is I take my $100 and divide it by 30, and that's my cost per action. So $3.33, right? So it's $1 per click, but $3.33 per action, right? So that way when I can look at value for actions, I mean, for example, if your average sale is $1,000 and it costs me $3.33 to get these people on an email list, and my conversion from email is 20%, right? So think about it. Again, do some math. I know I'm not doing the math up here. I'm doing the math more in my head. But the conversion is 20% from that. So 100 people at $3.33 is $333, right? And I convert 20% of those, or 20 people, into those buyers, right? So now my buying conversion ratio is $333 divided by 20, right? So what is it, about $13 a piece? Okay. So it cost me $13 to make a sale. That's a $1,000 sale. Is that decent?
Yeah.
As long as my profit margin is high enough on that particular product sold, right? So again, so when I'm looking at that, it's that cost per action in each of these. That also means I need to calculate a cost per lead. Sometimes cost per action and cost per lead may be the same thing, depends on what the specific action is, right? Number 5 is cost per order. All right, and this is really what I just calculated out for you right here. So it cost me this much to get them to my site, it cost me this much to turn them into a lead, and then it cost me this much to actually get the sale. Right? So then we can calculate it back and know. I mean, so for example, if my average sale is $6,000, let's say, and my profit margin is 50%, then my profit margin is $3,000, correct? So if my net profit margin is $3,000, then effectively, any marketing that cost me less than $3,000 per sale, I am net positive. Now, obviously, I want to get that as low as possible, right? But if I'm calculating it out that way into a net profit margin, if my net profit margin is 50%, as long as the cost to acquire a new customer is less than that 50%, then I'm profit positive. Make sense? So depending on the type of organization that you have, depending on the type of company that you have, it may cost a lot more to generate an order than other companies. But that's okay if you calculate all this stuff out and you look at your profit margins. Right? So going back to our $1,000 order, let's say your profit margin is 40%. So your profit margin is $400. That's your net profit margin on that particular sale, right? So as long as generating that lead costs me less than $400, I am profit positive, right? If it costs me $400 or more, I'm profit negative, okay? Then the goal would be to reduce that cost per order, right? So if it's costing me, if my profit margin is $400 and it's costing me $250, then the question becomes is, okay, I need to analyze next, how do I reduce that $250? What am I doing or not doing in my strategy that is making that cost a lot more than what it should? And then the last question is lifetime value. Lifetime value of a client or lifetime value of an order, right? Because again, the question here becomes is, if I'm focused on one-time sales, then my lifetime value is going to be the equivalent of the average order. However, if I'm doing recurring revenue, if I'm doing additional sales, repeat sales, cross sales, right? If I'm doing all that, then the lifetime value increases. So for my example that I was talking about earlier, if I'm looking at this client's worth $6,000, but I know if I know I keep an average client for 5 years, the order may be worth $6,000 up front, but if it's $6,000 a year for 5 years, the order's not worth $6,000, it's worth $30,000, right? That's my lifetime value, which means that if I know that's my average, then I can actually take a higher cost per order and still be profitable. I know, for example, one of the companies we own is an insurance brokerage, right? On almost every single policy that's written through that company, we lose money the first year. Okay? Our cost per order tends to be right around or slightly higher than what we make on it in the first year. But if those people keep it and they renew and renew and renew and renew, then the lifetime value goes up exponentially.
Doesn't cost you as much to retain it.
Doesn't cost us as much to retain it, right? It's basic service work. Okay, so that being said, then when we look at that business, and if I tell the person in charge of that particular business, I say, look, you need to fire this client. The reason for that is because they have no lifetime value, right? And there are times where you have to tell people, look, you're a little needy. You're going to have to go somewhere else. You're either going to need to be less needy, or you're going to have to go somewhere else. Because I realistically can't charge them that much more, right? We can in certain ways, but it boils down to that, affecting our profitabilities. And invariably you'll find, and it's true of most businesses, by the way, invariably you'll find a handful of clients that are just pain in the butt. Fire those. Move on. Spend a few bucks and pick up another one. You know what I'm saying? This is our means analysis. It looks complicated, but it's not. It's not but a handful of questions in reality, right? What social media outlets am I using? What am I doing with those things? What tools am I using in that, right? What display outlets am I using? Am I using any tools in that, right? What search engines am I working on? What am I targeted with, right? My search engines. Today's day and age, if you're not targeting Google and Bing in your search engines, then you need to be, right? Are you taking advantage of SEO? Are you doing any SEO on your website? Are you placing any SEM ads? On your website, do you have a website? And how good is it? Now, I'm not just talking about visually, I'm talking about content. Right? Your CRM here, are you taking advantage of tools? Are you doing email marketing? Is there anything that you have within that that's helping you, again, build the relationship in the community with people? Right? And then look at some analytics for where you're at. And when we get into this next, then our next topic of discussion specifically will be around which of these tools are going to be best for each of these business needs. Make sense?